Hi, I'm Ross Tuttle, filling in for Ashley Ford, and this is 112BK. Coming up, Reimagine End of Life Festival is coming to New York City Saturday for a full week, exploring the issue of death from a variety of perspectives, including this one.
And we were just laughing, like talking about our dads dying, but it was very funny. You know, there's like so much that happens in grief that's just hilarious.
Then, in case you didn't know, Brooklyn has its very own paranormal society. We didn't go to their Joey Ramone ghost hunt. We missed it, unfortunately, but we did invite the co-founders into the studio.
I like to deny it, but deep down inside I have, really strong psychic abilities. And, when I walked in here, I felt something strange.
If there are spirits here, tell us what your name is.
Hi, welcome to the show. It's officially the start of Halloweek. That's right, we're beginning the celebration early here on 112BK with talk of ghosts and going the way of all flesh. Coming up, a chat with the co-founders of the Brooklyn Paranormal Society, who will hopefully help us get the real answer to the all-important question, who are you going to call? But first, you may remember a few shows back when we spoke to a death doula, a woman who helps individuals ease out of life. Starting Saturday, she, along with thousands of others focused on issues of death, will be convening at the Reimagine End of Life Festival. It's billed as a week-long celebration of life through creativity and conversation. One conversation starter is the question, can death be funny? Our next guest appears to have an answer. She made the film Senior Escort Service as a response to the sudden death of her father. Here's a clip.
It's too long.
It has a lot of verses.
Is the Leonard Cohen song super long or something?
I don't think so.
Who's Marshall?
He's a good family friend and a terrific musician.
Is he Jewish?
No,
We can have the choir sing something.
absolutely not. Everything they wear is a different shade of black. They have these hideous binders. They walk super slow. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. No, thank you.
Your father loved the choir.
My father loved Hallelujah.
Fine, I'll sing Hallelujah.
Great.
Film is part of her presentation at the festival, what she's calling the Good Grief Show. She's also the filmmaker behind the BRIC TV series Dinette, also director of Baby Mooners, and a multi-talented radio personality. We welcome Shaina Feinberg back to 112BK.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So just to jump right in, tell me, when did you decide that this would be a response to your father's death?
Let's see. Well, about 5 weeks after my dad died, I made a short film about his Shiva. And I had so much...
For those who don't know what Shiva is, it's the week-long period of mourning in the Jewish tradition?
Yeah, it's a week-long Jewish mourning ritual.
Right.
And so much funny stuff happened at his actual Shiva. So 3 friends of mine and we decided to sort of recreate it, and we made a short that went to Tribeca. And
what funny happens at a Shiva?
well, like someone came who was potty training their kid, and the kid pooped all over their pants, so then they're walking around just in their underwear. And then some people who show up like looked worse than my dad when he was dead. There's just it's just kind of this, I don't know, there's more, it's morbid, but you're also thinking about all the, everyone comes to tell stories, and a lot of the stories about my dad were funny, and it was just, people like, you go into the bathroom and someone's like clearly peed all over the bathroom, and it's just weird and bizarre.
Sure. Little like lighter moments maybe, or like little sort of unexpected moments.
Also, it was, my dad died the day before Trump was inaugurated. So like there was all of this like hatred. I mean, there still is, but there was all of this sort of movement around that. And so we put that into the short, like this kind of Trump stuff, like calling your senators was in our short called Shiva. But after I made that, I was like, I'm not done. I still have so much more to say about my dad dying, and I wanted a container to put all of my feelings about him dying and about grief, and just, before he died, he had pitched me a web series called Senior Escort Service, and so I just wanted to use that too. Like, I thought it was really funny, his idea.
Yeah, well, we were talking in the office before this segment a little bit about, in light of this festival coming up, about sort of the performance of grief And yours is a sort of very explicit way, but I think, culturally, historically, it's always been that way. Like, open casket in some ways is a performance. And a lot of the sort of the performance, I guess, that comes out, in the film. I wonder if you were sort of conscious of that and conscious of like showing, putting out your emotions so that they were real to you and to others.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think about as one of the best side effects, I don't know if that's the right word, but one of the best side effects of my dad dying was that I wrote him like a eulogy, and as a performer, like I felt like I killed, like I really did a great job, like I headlined, and I did well, like people laughed, they cried, it was. But that's a performance, and the same with Shiva is a performance. And
it's interesting. I mean, I did the same thing. I read a eulogy at my dad's funeral, and a lot of people were surprised that I wanted to do that. Like, how can you compose yourself, and are you going to be able to do it without breaking down? And I broke down, but that's part of it. I mean, I imagine that was the hard thing for you, but you are a performer. I'm not. So
I didn't break. I was like. I took off my shoes because I knew that I had to feel grounded, but I didn't break down. I just felt like I did a great job doing it. I was happy to do it. Like I included jokes of his in it, and I mean, I wasn't happy to be doing it, but I was happy to kind of summarize his life in this way that felt funny and real.
Tell me, so you are going to be contributing to the Reimagine End of Life Festival. Why is it End of Life something that needs to be reimagined?
Well, I think that there's not enough talk about it. Like what I felt when I was grieving my dad, I mean, I'm still grieving him, but what I felt was that you get like you're allotted a couple days or a couple months or whatever, a certain amount of time.
That black patch on your clothing.
Like you're okay, I get it, I feel bad for you, this is sad.
Right.
But then you're expected to just kind of go on. The thing is, like, the person never comes back, and every single person deals with grief of a loved one at some point in their lives, and I just think that talking about it more and sort of reimagining how we deal with death in our lives would be better. Like I love the idea of a death doula.
Right. No, which is incredible, and it seems like that's an obvious thing that should happen, and so that there does seem to be more of a focus on healthy death, where people kind of separate it from life, and it's all part of life, right? But I also wonder if this is something sort of that we're going back to traditionally, historically, that people already did, and now we're almost over-fixated. And one might say, well, again, dying is part of life. Just, it happens. Get over it.
Yeah, but what if we were to say, like, dying is part of life, it happens, and you don't have to get over it. Like, you can kind of make death be more a part of your life. Like, or maybe getting over it, sure, is a good idea, but maybe there's just ways to help people to get over it more. Something I found was after my dad died, I just wanted to tell everyone, and I would be with like total strangers and be like, my dad just died. And then what I found was that they would be like, oh, my so-and-so died 2 years ago. And then we would have this really real interaction. And then like it was an interaction I would never have had with them. And so I think that's like, I think it's cool to just talk about it more, like air the dirty laundry a little more.
How did you feel about that? Because I can imagine it, and I was in that situation too, where you're feeling something, you're feeling this weight, and yet you're with people who may not know, and you kind of want them to know it's not quite like you want somebody to know it's your birthday,
right?
But you want to share something, and you feel a little bit guilty about burdening somebody with that or making them feel bad for not knowing.
I didn't feel that burden. I felt like I had to be real. In order to be real and be myself, I had to tell them, like, look, this happened to me and I'm struggling with it. And I almost always found that they were like, I'm struggling too. And it was just nice to be like, oh, we're both struggling. And then we could like kind of move on and be like, do you want to split the fish tacos or whatever? But it's like meeting someone in a real place and moving forward together. It just felt really nice to me.
Well, so let's talk about the senior escort service. And we showed a clip. Actually, I don't know if it's a clip from that. It was the one where you're talking to maybe the cantor or somebody.
Yes,
you're walking through your apartment.
That is from,
Okay, yeah. And so tell us about that. And then, I mean, wanting to play Leonard Cohen at his funeral. and just about the film.
Well, so the day after my dad died, I was planning the funeral with the rabbi, and I really wanted to play Leonard Cohen, and they were like, it's too long, and I just like, I couldn't understand why, and whatever. Anyways, the cantor said she would do it, and then she didn't, and that was kind of, for me, this like driving force of my movie. Was like, I wanted to make this movie because I wanted to sing this song, and so I dramatized that scene. I used 2 amazing Jewish actors to play the rabbi and the cantor, and it was super fun to do that scene with them. But yeah, I for me, I felt like I needed to like tell that story about, like, for closure. So I reenacted that. And then it's kind of like the whole movie is me going on these journeys and eventually getting to sing my dad a song at the end.
And how much of this was informed by, say, other experiences that other people had that maybe you heard when you were telling people about your experience, or was this all very personal?
Well, what I did do was I've shot, so my dad was a therapist, and he once had said to me that his dinner parties felt like group therapy. So I did shoot, at one point I shot a dinner party where I had people telling their personal stories, and so some of those stories are in the movie. So it is kind of a mix of like some other people's stories, but the driving force of it is my desire to kind of contain all of these feelings and also be like a detective. Like when my dad died, I like looked through his phone a ton to see if there was like something I was missing, and he had this journal called Senior Escort Service because I had told him to write down his ideas, and so I read the journal a bunch. And I actually found out about this book called Ghost Stories by a German author, and in that book he talks about how the grandchildren of Nazis developed this technique called Familienaufstellung, which means family constellation, where like they tap all of these strangers to play people in their family and reenact their trauma, and then that's supposed to help them get over their trauma. So I did that in the movie too. Like I had all of these women join me in a loft, and I assigned them all roles, and then we reenacted the trauma of my dad dying. But it's also funny.
Right. I mean, would you call it a comedy?
I would. I think everything I do is a comedy, but it's also, I think it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry. I mean, ultimately it's sad, but it is funny. There's a lot of funny stuff in it.
So having put this out there into the world, having this be your statement in a way, and kind of encapsulating a lot of your emotions, wouldn't say all of them necessarily, but do you feel like then that, how helpful was that for you in the whole process? And do you feel like you've come to some kind of terms with it?
Yeah, I'm so happy I did it. Like, I have yet to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Like, on Monday for Reimagine End of Life, I am doing this show, and I'm going to show clips from it and talk about making it. Right. But I still don't know. I think it's a good conversation piece, and I think if someone watched it, it would help them think about their own grief. But I'm so happy I made it. Like, I can watch it and see items of my dad, and I can see his face. I made a bunch of people dress up like him, and that was cool. Like, it just
in his clothes.
Yeah, in his clothes. They all wore the same shirt and his watch, and I made them like mimic my face, which is basically his face. So I would like sit behind the camera and be like, you know, and then they would do that.
Wait, so for those who are listening, that was kind of like, how would you describe that face?
Oh, like a sort of like a goofy, slightly concerned face, like a grimace.
A grimace.
But not a bad grimace, like a goofy grimace. And yeah, so, and it's just like amazing. Like now, sometimes in the mornings, I'll just like watch a little segment of it and feel like, you know, I've connected with my dad, and it's funny and it's sad, and it just, I don't know, I'm so happy I finished it. And
I want to talk about the Good Grief show in a minute. Just one final question about your dad. What do you think your dad would think of the film?
I think he would have loved it. It's so him. I did use some of he did voice lessons, like he did singing lessons, and I used some of his warm-up in part of the movie where he's like, you know, like me, my, mo, or whatever. Not that, but like he does these singing vocal warm-ups. And I think he would be a little bit like, I wish you hadn't used that. But otherwise, I think he would have loved it. It's it's so complicated and messy and about feelings and funny and sad, and I think it totally encapsulates his personality.
How old was he when he died?
He was 74.
So the Good Grief Show, which
Yeah.
is going to be at, what is it, KGB?
It's the Red Room at KGB Bar,
Okay.
which is 85 East 4th Street.
Right. So tell me, I know you already you introduced that a bit, but tell us a little bit more about that.
So we're doing like a comedy show, basically. We have 9 acts. It'll be me and my co-host Joe Schiappa, who's a comedy writer, and then we have a bunch of comedians. We have Carolina Teresa, Mike Brown. We have Dre Campbell, Rachel Dry, and then we have and Jeff Seal, and then we have 2 musicians, Adira Amram and Cornmo. And so everyone's going to be coming and either singing or talking about grief, you know, in a light way. And yeah, I'm excited about it. It's just like my friend Joe and I were co-hosting the other day. We kind of hopped on the phone just to talk about what we would say to warm the crowd up. And we were just laughing, like talking about our dads dying, but it was very funny. You know, there's like so much that happens
Right.
in grief that's just hilarious.
Afraid we're going to have to end it there.
Okay.
But thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us. And Shaina Feinberg, who's the Good Grief Show is going to be, again, tell us.
October 29th at the Red Room at KGB Bar, 85 East 4th Street, 8 o'clock.
And then the Reimagine End of Life Festival begins Saturday the 27th, and I think goes for about a week.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, I think to November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Yeah.
And spans Halloween.
Yeah, and it's like over 300 events.
Wow,
so,
over 300 events, a
yeah.
lot of performers, a lot of
Yeah.
acts, one issue. Are there any events in Brooklyn, do you know?
Oh, there's tons. Yeah,
Tons.
I think there's there's tons. I know
Okay.
Donna Hennis, Mama Donna Hennis. She's doing something about dead animals or dying animals in Prospect Park. There's tons. There's so many.
And it was purposefully scheduled to kind of go across Halloween, I'm guessing? Or is that a
I'm guessing,
coincidence?
but I have no idea.
Right.
I think so, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it would be a good event for people to go to if they're looking for something a little extra on their Halloweens.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thanks a lot,
Thank
Shaina.
you for having me.
If you do an internet search for Brooklyn Paranormal Society, because of course, you'll find a bunch of first-person articles with essentially the same headline, I went ghost hunting with the Brooklyn Paranormal Society. If you did, you likely went to a haunted Gowanus recording studio, a Greenpoint wine bar, or Arlene's Grocery, the site of the Society's most recent adventure, where they sought the spirit of Joey Ramone, lead singer of the punk rock band The Ramones. Why not Arlene's Grocery, the gritty Lower East Side music venue? We know Joey Ramone isn't buried in a pet cemetery. But what did they discover? And what can you expect from a night out with this unusual crew? We have those questions and more for the co-founders of what could be Brooklyn's most unusual social club. We welcome Anthony Long, thanks for joining us today, and Andrew Arnett. Welcome to 112BK. So, Anthony, I want to start with you. When did you decide that the thing Brooklyn was missing was a paranormal society?
You know, we were just shooting the stuff, drinking, and we were talking about Ghost Adventures, a TV show, and how, you know, we kind of like the ghost hunting aspects of it, but we felt almost as if the show was making us feel dumb for believing what they were putting out there. They were far more into the paranormal, and there's a lot that they could stomach, but maybe like the scratches they weren't buying. And you know, I thought to myself, when people watch this, they take it very seriously. The shows out there also take it very seriously.
So this was sort of inspired by some of the reality shows, a lot of those paranormal reality shows, and some alcohol.
Yeah.
And so you decided to kind of put together this group. You put up a flyer that, Andrew, you saw, right?
Yeah, it was in October. I guess the timeline is like a month after the group started, and there was we walked by this flyer, and then I just I did a double take. I said, hold on. And then I walked back and I saw drunken ghost hunting. And I'm like, well, you know, these are like 2 of my favorite activities, like put together.
So you weren't shy about advertising what was really going on.
That's what it is.
Great. So then you reached out and you guys founded the society.
Yeah. Well, I went, and then it was a ghost hunt in the lower East Side, And then from there, Anthony and I took this sort of concept, and for the next few years, we just, went on many different adventures, and it evolved to a lot of different things.
What equips you sort of physically, emotionally, psychically for this work?
A sense of fun and an inquisitive nature and an open mind about the world we live in is the starting basis.
When you look at our group count, we have over 950 members. And, in that, we obviously have, a fair amount of detectives, which are what we call our investigators. We also have psychics, shamans, wizards, witches. When you combine the experience of all these people, you have hundreds of years of experience. And they all lend it freely to whatever the current goal of the society is, whatever the current investigation is or the theme is.
So people call in, or maybe you have a hunt in mind, one that you want to go, like the Joey Ramone hunt. How did that come into being? And maybe you could tell us really briefly, Anthony, how that got initiated and what the results were.
We received a tip in person, actually, from a guitarist that said while playing on stage, he experienced auditory hallucination, if you will. He began to hear Rock and Roll High School in his mind while he was playing whatever song his band was playing.
At Arlene's Grocery.
Yeah. So we basically, took this and developed an investigation around it. So once we put the feelers out there, we found a woman who knew Joey Ramone personally, and she claimed to have been in close proximity and also have been touched by Joey Ramone several times.
And so she was the medium. And
she was like the vessel, if you will, because we had real mediums there, and they were utilizing their skill and kind of hoping that her presence would amplify his spirit.
I see. And did it?
We both would say that the woman who had this relationship to Joey did experience something.
And Andrew, what would you say?
It's more like you come to a situation like this, and you're not really expecting to find a ghost. I mean, no one has a picture of a ghost, nothing of that nature. It's like, it's the idea of getting people together, discussing, the Joey Ramone, and then you hear stories about ghosts, but an offshoot of what happened, because a guy became a center of focus, we'll just call him James, or the captain. And this guy started talking about this horrific sort of poltergeist activity in his house. Seems perfectly sane, but horrible things are happening to him.
This was somebody who attended the Joey Ramone event, and then he was there to basically solicit you guys.
Yeah.
But let's be clear. You guys aren't like, ghost busters. You're not doing exorcisms, or you're not going to help, eradicate any ghosts from his presence, are you?
Well, no. But we would assist in identifying whether something supernatural is occurring or not. He came to us with essentially a notebook filled with events of things that have been happening to him. We take this, we look at it, we're like, all right, there's a couple of things that could be going on here. Before we even diagnose, what is a modern day tech savvy, if you will, solution for this? A canary, right? It's a wireless camera. I could watch him from the phone at night if he wants us to, see exactly what's going on. We don't need to run in there with the priest and do all this craziness. It could just be a really simple test to maybe he's a sleepwalker, maybe.
So let's get down to brass tacks, though. So Anthony, do you believe in this stuff?
I believe in some of it, Sure,
Right.
maybe.
But you, of the two, you would be considered the skeptic. You're the Scully to Andrew's Mulder.
I got to tell you, I do sometimes feel that way. Before, when he came to the group, he was, researching aliens, right, or writing stories on these things. And to me, I was like, wow, that's out there. Now I feel like maybe the roles are a little reversed, where as time goes on, I may be deeper on the paranormal spectrum.
So you start to dig into this stuff a little bit, and you find things that kind of maybe affirm.
You find what you're looking for.
Are we getting a readout that there might be ghosts in this room?
I feel something here. Yeah. When I walked in and look, I like to deny it, but deep down inside I have, really strong psychic abilities. And, when I walked in here, I felt something strange.
You did?
I did.
Well, there have been a lot of strange things that have happened in this room, for sure. And then we've got just like a little radio over there, maybe
Spirit box.
Spirit box. Oh.
This cycles through radio waves and creates almost a bed of white noise. And some say you can get a response from the spirits through it.
Mm-hmm. And so what happens if you turn that on?
So we normally would ask a question like, if there are spirits here, tell us what your name is. And then as this thing cycles through the AM cycles, you listen. And it's because the premise is that, like, if a spirit is energy, then this is a form of energy, and this is a way to, like,
manipulate
between worlds and dimensions. They could work through that.
Do
And we've
stuff.
had results, but for the maybe 1 out of 10 times something significant comes up.
Above everything, I mean, this is for fun, right? I mean, you guys are having a good time with this. This is kind of a social gathering.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's a lot of fun, but the thing is, the paranormal world, it's fun, but it's serious in many ways. Now, just this weekend, there's been a major news story that's erupted right here in Brooklyn. In that regard, what happened was that there was a group of Wiccans in a local bookstore named Catland.
Right.
And they said, we're going to put a hex on Brett Kavanaugh. Like, this has caught a lot of national headlines. And as a response, there's an exorcist, a Catholic priest in San Jose, who's also started a mass in retaliation of this.
right, wow,
And
trying to remove the hex.
to block it or remove it.
So it's
And-
a bi-coastal, it's a kind of tit for tat.
Exactly.
East
So
side, west side.
So there's a lot going on with this, and we just, we're interested, we're fascinated. Maybe there's nothing paranormal per se, but sociologically speaking, it's interesting.
We fancy ourselves to be para-anthropologists.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, before we go, the one thing I know you guys wanted to plug this weekend, you have an event coming up.
We do. Please join us at the Green Pointers Market. It's Sunday, 127. Come see the Brooklyn Paranormal Society and all our psychics.
Anthony, Andrew, thanks so much for coming out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the show for today. Tomorrow, Ashley will be back to talk about Brooklyn Tech Week and the New Fest happening now, the 30th year of the city's premier LGBTQ film festival. Hope to see you then.